today's episode is a fancy episode about a fancy topic
Yes.
that's in the press. It's about AI,
Yes.
right?
Finally, an episode about AI.
Finally. So what do you think we're going to talk about today?
AI and software engineering, I
Yes.
hope.
Yes, and software engineering, how it influences how we structure our departments, how the organizations will look like in the future, I guess. Engineering, product.
Maybe some looking into the glass ball and not the glass ball, the crystal ball, like looking into the future.
Yeah, predicting a couple of things.
Yeah, that's
Yes. How and maybe also how companies can use AI tooling and how CTOs can use AI in their management duties and how it can simplify this as well, not only engineering.
I heard you have some insights.
I have some insights, big cliffhanger now, but we're going to talk about this in a second.
See you there.
Today's episode is about a topic nobody knows about, and it is not in the press. And of course, I'm joking. Today, we're going to talk about AI, which everyone talks about, which
Finally.
companies are using, which improves how we lead departments, how engineers work, how the departments look like, productivity gains, and so much more. So, why do you think AI matters? Marco, do you have a take on this?
Yeah.
If you don't have a take, I have a take on this. But, I'm a shy person. I just wanted to ask you first.
All good. I think AI matters. I think that it matters maybe different than most people think, or than maybe some people think, but it's there in the recent, let's say, technology history, when things like, I don't know, COBOL was introduced at the, like, I don't know, 60s, so I don't even know when it was actually introduced, and like, let's say the level of what programming actually looks like has been moved into a different, a higher, better, easier to use level. Promises were like, now everybody can code, and reality was that everybody can code, but way more people were able to code and produce applications or build features. And I think another one was when, like, the mouse was invented, and like we had like the visual desktops and so on and so on. And again, everything will be much easier. And we found out, actually, it's not so much easier, but it was a revolution. And we had the same with the internet, and we had the same with the introduction of the mobile phones that have like the touch screen, like the first iPhones. And I don't think that it was when the blockchains were introduced, but that's my personal opinion.
I would agree.
But again, here I feel that we are in a position where something revolutionary is happening, and it's going to change how we work, but maybe not as the marketeers want us to believe. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm open for it. I'm open for the revolution, but I'm also cautious on drinking the Kool-Aid. So
Yeah, that's right. I think you put it very well. So for me, I'm super enthusiastic about the topic. For me,
yeah.
for instance, the internet, that was huge, like 1990s somewhere when we got our first modems and connecting to mailbox systems, and at some point AOL, and then at some point internet and connecting to websites. This was huge, right? So this connected me to the whole world, and it was so amazing, and it was like, wow, something big is happening. And it unfolded over the next years, and it's still unfolding over the next decades, I guess. And so for me, the whole AI stuff, what's now this marketing term AI, which is LLMs basically, this is as huge as that for me. So this changes like anything we're doing. The way the amount of adoption I see right now in the population. So anyone is using AI. So my wife is a photographer. She doesn't know about Hugo. She doesn't know about Markdown files. She uses Cloud Code to write and develop her own website. She doesn't know any tech. And like my daughter, she's in school. She uses ChatGPT to create learning lessons and learning courses for her English um, learning courses. She uses it for mathematics and many more things. She's now 13, 14 years old. It's crazy how the adoption in the population is, right? And I can see this anywhere I look. And it's a huge thing. And so the question is, because it's LLMs, it's also huge for us because we are engineers, and it's huge for companies as well. So, I mean, just to be precise about AI had its hype in the 80s and 90s, where you had systems that did decision making based on trees and so on. This was my feeling.
Neural
And
networks.
yeah, neural networks, maybe I guess this was even before neural networks, but this decision-making trees that was supposed to be the new big thing to solve like experts um, making decisions and helping them and replacing like doctors, for instance, it never took off. It never took off. But now, what we now consider AI, it takes off, right? It's huge, huge amounts of money are flowing into data centers, energy is used on that, and chips developed, NVIDIA growing, and so on and so on. So this is very huge. It might be a bubble, but I think the bubble, it can't even pop really. It will be with us. So, and when we talk about AI, what we talk about is, I guess, LLMs and then agent systems. So,
Yes.
and are you using LLMs and agent systems in your daily work as manager, leader at eGym?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Although it's not so much about me personally, but it's rather about the department and what it does to, let's say, the trade or the craft of software development. I'm honest with you. I'm not coding anymore for years, and
You will start again. Let's not sick them.
something like Claude is like making it easy for me to, I don't know, as you described, just write some HTML and then create a website or whatever. But that's not really coding. Um, yes, but I think the impact is bigger than now the CTO or the VPs or like starting to code again, but it's rather because that doesn't really scale. It's like the scale is if I have 200 engineers that now are becoming 10 times as productive, having one VP in there that becomes more productive was not going to tip the scale. The 200 engineers will tip the scale.
Okay. Then how do we make these 200 engineers more productive? How do we introduce that? Because what I also, to give you my perspective, what I see is that you have a certain percentage of engineers that use Claude like every day, at home at least, and they are totally into AI tooling. And then you have also a certain percentage of the engineers that are actually huge skeptics for potentially the right reasons, but they don't want to use any AI assisted coding tools. They don't trust them. They think it's stupid, and that takes them more time to fix the bugs that these systems create than to write the code in the first place. So what I usually use as a mental model is having like a leveling system. So you have the skeptics, you have engineers that use ChatGPT to ask questions, but also to prompting, yeah, to ask questions, but also to maybe paste code and ask GPT to, can you create a test for that? And copy and paste the test into your IDE, which is already like helpful, but that's the second level. The third level is then having ChatGPT in your IDE and using it as a daily tool with access to your files that you can then copy and paste, and maybe that tooling can then also make changes to your files. Then we have, and this is like, I guess, fluent tooling like Cloud Code, Z, and others that are IDEs and understand the code base. So basically agentic coding. So not only like one thing that does stuff, but one thing that can use tools, then kick off other things or agents and can reason about things or try to reason about things and change code bases. Like a thing where you can develop a product requirement or a spec together with a tool first develop how the thing should look like that you want to develop, steps, checklists, and so on, requirements. And then the tooling works for half an hour and implements the thing.
Right.
So like a new partner that lives inside your machine and is a new engineer and can do stuff for you. And you can't only do this like on one screen. You can have like 10 of these agent systems run in parallel on different code bases
Right.
or on the same code base even, and fix your things. And one friend of mine, he uses GitHub Actions or GitHub in general, and uses tooling. Once a GitHub issue comes in, it gets picked up by an agentic system, fixed automatically, and a pull request is being created. And he told me, and this is already like 1 month ago, so this is now at the beginning of 2026, that this works actually surprisingly well. So most of the bugs that are coming in regarding the systems he maintains are fixed properly. And so he told me like 2 of, let's say 5 tickets are fixed, and he can just click the button to merge something. So it's really totally automated inside your CI/CD pipeline, and the pull requests are getting created. And the only thing that like a human has to do is to click the button, review the pull request, and click the button.
Yeah.
How crazy is this? And the question now,
Amazing.
the question now for us is, if we think that this is a good approach to make us more productive, and I think it is, then how can we move our engineering departments into that direction?
Yeah. So I think you just did like a roundhouse kick
Yeah,
on everything that
that
we're
was
going to
actually
talk.
maybe too much. Yeah, but
It's I found it very inspiring because I think we now can use this to talk about like every single part that you mentioned, and maybe I can give my 2 cents on each.
yes,
So first thing what you described was how this has changed from the human is in the lead and using a tool towards um, actually an agent is in the lead and the human is more of a guide, more like the final step that needs to do the review or something like this.
that's right.
And to me it feels like a different way of pairing. Like if you think about like these approaches from extreme programming where you had like pair programming in there, or if you want to bring it to extreme like mob programming, it feels a little bit like this to me. So I'm not so surprised, but we're replacing humans that are helping you to like build the thing that needs to be built with agents that are doing this for you now. And I don't know if agents are already better in understanding the concepts of the technology that you picked up, but they are lacking only the creativity to use this knowledge and design a system and build a system. Or if there are people still saying that also I'm a better, I don't know, C++ engineer than the agent because I have everything up here. But it doesn't really matter. Like for me, it's more like a human is has become more like a observer and, let's say, guide to a bunch of, let's say, junior engineers that are agents, but who have a really, really good understanding on how the technology that they're working in works.
Yeah,
Because they can read the document, the manual in no time.
yeah. So working with treating these agent-based systems as junior developers, that's like a big plus one. I see it the same way. You have to guide them, and you have to set up everything properly, and you have to tell also junior developers, I mean, how do we structure our code? What's the test coverage I would expect? What principles do I follow? So domain-driven design, and long list of things how you create your software. And you have to tell the junior developer about this, or the developer in general, but you have to also tell the AI about this. Super, super important. You have to always like improve how the systems work.
Setting expectations.
Yes,
It's
expectation management.
it's a theme, right, that we're having here.
Yeah, agent-based expectation.
And if we're now looking at this, this is what we see today. I don't know what tomorrow will look like, and I would not count myself as someone who's like jumping easily, like on the first technology change. And like, I'm not the person that is like the scout that then has also the risk of being eaten by the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
I'm more like a settler that is following the scout after things have been at least cleared out. So I'm not trying to jump on every new technology and every new idea that someone brings out. It has to be proven, but it's more like not because I'm risk averse personally, but rather because I have the responsibility for a whole department. And if I let like a whole department use all of these things like the very beginning, I'm endangering basically
Yeah.
the whole company and not just myself.
But you have also challenges, and very important challenges, because if you let AI tools use your code bases, you have a high chance that all the credentials and all the secrets then move to some server somewhere
Right.
and get stuff done. So this means, do you let everyone go crazy with AI tooling, or do you put guardrails left and right? And how hard or how difficult are these guardrails to escape? And yeah, how do you do this properly? And at the same time, before you answer, you just said that you don't know how the technology will look like in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks or months. It's changing so quickly
Yeah.
that the guardrails you put in place right now, they will be obsolete or completely different in like maybe 2 weeks from now. So that's like very, very hard to navigate right now.
So I hear two questions here. Like one is, um, I'm responsible for a department. I have a lot of people that are interested in finding out, and that's also one of the things that you said in your intro. Um, there are people that are very interested in this and are experimenting on their own with this, and then there are people that are more reluctant. They don't trust the technology yet because they haven't seen it work yet, or maybe they made some experience with it and it didn't work because they used something half a year ago. If they would do the same thing today, it would work perfectly because it has advanced so quickly. So first of all, I'm personally dealing with a very high, very broad spectrum where I have people on the one extreme, like let me do everything I want to that I did before using agents, and I have people that are like experimenting with it, or yeah, let's do a little bit of I'm asking a question, writing a prompt, and that's already difficult to manage. And but then there's the other thing that you mentioned, what kind of guardrails or what do I need to set up so that agents don't go like a boink and everything is like being destroyed. And my view on this is what an agent is able to do would be very, very similar to what an engineer would be able to do. So the things that I need to set up are actually the same things that I would have had to set up for humans. Just that the machine is so much faster in executing and doing things that if we want to have it deliver on all its capabilities, suddenly these checks and balances and guardrails are becoming so much more important. Like testing, there is a very simple rule that we have. Like when you're writing code, every single line, or not every, you need to write unit tests, right? And it's a rule that the humans need to follow. So when I have an agent developing something, I would have the same expectations, write unit tests. And it's a first rule. And the boundaries that we're now jumping or that we're hitting now is, let's talk about integration tests, or let's talk about maybe system tests. We don't have these tests, but for some reason we are allowing humans to deploy or merge and do things because they did some manual testing around it. And let's let's face it, like there's no amount of manual testing that is able to that you can do before release to really test what you want to test. But now that we have AI, we're saying like, no, we have to create all of these tests before we allow AI to do stuff. And that's a kind of a conflict or friction that I'm finding myself in. And maybe you could also call it like a chicken or egg problem. And my take on it is it's the same challenges and the same checks and balances that we need to have for when humans are working on it. It's only the speed now that AI is able, or LLMs are able to deliver on something that suddenly makes us think differently on it. Very interesting. I haven't solved it, but I have a tendency to say, yeah, I can create these checks and balances, but why don't I create them when I find that something is not working, instead of making it a barrier for using AI to its full extent, to using agentic coding to its full extent.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's very true. So I think we, like in an ideal company, we wouldn't have to create some special files for AI, because these files would already exist, like
Exists already. Yeah.
test coverage and so on. And but this is something you can use to your advantage. So if you have a couple of companies or a couple of teams that are using, let's say, Laravel as a language or as a framework, you will have a certain structure how the Laravel applications look like, a certain way how to manage secrets, a certain way how to write tests when you write code, and so on. So write this down once, put this in your Cloud MD file or Agents MD file, and replicate the file across all your Laravel projects and all your teams. And you will find clever ways how you can manage this, of course. You don't have to copy and paste this. But then you essentially have the same approach across all the teams, and all the agent systems will write very similar code. And then you jointly improve the instructions for the agent system together. And at the same time, they will be the same instructions that humans will use. So like a win-win situation, standardize things.
Let me double down on this one here. Are you saying you would create these instructions and these markdown files before you're allowing your team to use this?
Well, if you should have documented this anyway.
Yes.
So and ideally you have this, but if you don't have this, then it's a good situation, or a good point to do this now, right? So you can use this to your advantage. That's what I wanted to say.
And that's maybe where that's what I meant with, like, there's some like maybe some friction in my head, but like, I have the tendency to say, no, I don't want to create this artificial barrier for engineers to use the new technology, because they want to innovate, they want to try out. You will always have engineers that will want to try out these things, and you don't want them to try this out at home and be innovative at home. You want them to be innovative in your company, because then you can benefit from it. Both will benefit from it. The engineer is learning and the company is growing. And if you are creating an artificial barrier, no, you have to have these MD files first. You have to have like all of these instructions first. Then you are basically creating a barrier where you're putting a red tape. No, you're not allowed to use this. And then they go back home and play around with their pet projects at home.
We talked about autonomy, purpose, mastery, right?
Yes.
From the famous book Drive. And of course, this is the autonomy part, right? So you have, and that's decentralized systems that offer. And you have to be careful about putting guardrails in place and allowing teams to experiment. But you have to make sure that the teams have autonomy on finding a good way, because the technology is anyway evolving that quickly. At the same time, you have to guide your teams to, if you see benefits of standardizing things, like having Cloud MD files across all the teams or some way to manage that, tell them about it and move them into that direction. Because, individual teams won't have that perspective, but you as a leader, you will have that perspective. So that's important.
That's an additional aspect. I was more towards like, do I want to create this barrier for them? And my answer is no, actually I don't. But then again, exactly what you're saying, how do I make sure that this is working for the whole department? How do I encourage people to create this? And we don't need to reinvent the wheel per team, but it's like valid for everyone. And how do I build this? And that's the leadership responsibility, to encourage this, to also, quote unquote, empower people to do this. Hopefully empowerment is not necessary, because people are, and I can imagine that under you, they feel like this, they're able to make these decisions on their own, and you're supporting them. They don't need to ask for permission.
Hopefully, yeah. So one of the things, like talking about the AI adoption, so we now have with one of the companies I'm working with, we have now like the goals or like an objective to make the AI usage stick with the company and the department and to increase the AI usage.
Mm-hmm.
Because of course we think that this will then lead to better software, more productivity, and so on. So how do we do this? So first of all, we have this objective. So we have an OKR about becoming AI ready. And the key results are something like, first of all, we're using GitHub Copilot. So we just to make sure that no secrets go to models that we don't control. So it's a GitHub Copilot, GDPR compliant, and we can measure the token usage of that. So, and the idea is, and this is a very bad idea, of course, but if the token usage goes up, then it's kind of good. This can go horribly off. But, you know, if we have a constant token usage, then maybe something is off, right? So this is one way how we can measure the adoption. And we then have an AI champion and an AI chapter that drives this, the adoption forward with
Yeah.
a clear support. With I think we said we're gonna have at least 3 meetings and presentations about AI usage and how to do this, and to make this really something that is a positive thing and leading by example. Like the teams are already adopting AI and they are doing presentations about this already. And so all the other teams that don't use AI or the people that are kind of skeptics, they see, wow, this is actually really good. So they adopt this. But we really try to manage this by the numbers as honestly as possible and have some champions inside the teams and an AI chapter to drive this forward.
Yeah.
So that's actually our way how we try to go into the AI adoption and to improve this. Yeah.
I like this. I mean, AI champions sounds a little bit also like security
Yeah,
champions.
it's the same concept, right? So security is a topic that is important for all the teams. AI is a topic that is important for all the teams. I don't know if we will need this AI chapter forever, because at the same time it's the same as writing tests and then you have
Becomes the
this
new
AI
normal.
chapter. Yeah, it becomes the new normal. But for exceptional times like these, I think it makes sense to have a focus on this and to have someone drive this forward.
So there's one thing that you said I want to comment on, and that's like you're measuring AI readiness,
Yeah.
or how did you call it? AI ready?
Yeah, that's something we
I would not
that's
name it like this, because the moment that you're naming it AI readiness, you're creating a barrier, you're creating a hurdle that needs to be like, oh, only when all of these goals are delivered, then we are AI ready. I would say you are AI ready today with what you have now. You're ready to do it, but there are maybe some wishes and aspirations that you have that if you want to like be more feel let's go into the squishy feely thing. If you want to feel more um secure, or more like have less concerns, like sleep well at night, then there are things that you want to build that create that feeling for you, but they don't create the AI readiness, but they just increase how you are, or they increase your professionalism on how
yeah.
you're handling.
So I think you have a good point. I have to revisit this, and so the objective should be written in a way that's really not creating another barrier that has to be like jumped, but something that's drives into this direction easily, I guess.
Yeah.
So not building barriers or more barriers. I think that's important there.
And how do you deal with these like people that are like on the different positions of the spectrum on adoption, like, or let's say having an open mind for this?
Yeah, it's to be honest, it's difficult because usually if you have people that are skeptics in that area, they have it's not the only thing they're a skeptic about, but um, so how do you deal with this? So the first approach is leading by example and showing them that it's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then the hope is that they will follow, because if it's a good idea, and I'm sure that it is a good idea, then they will kind of want to learn this, right? This is what we do as engineers. So they will, the person or the people that are skeptics will do this as well. So leading by example. Another way how we do this is we moved this AI topic into our career ladders. So if it comes to software quality and producing good code, it's for us as important as writing proper tests.
Mhm.
So, I mean, at some point in your career, you have to be able to write proper tests, because this is like writing tests per se doesn't have a benefit, but stable software has. And so, one tool for you is writing good tests. And the same is true for AI. So AI won't save you as an engineer, or will not lead to better software per se. But if you want to create software in a good way, in a productive way, then AI will be very, very important for you. So we expect you as a senior developer to be AI, and I don't want to use the ready word because we didn't use it, but AI capable, or have AI competencies in certain areas, measurable by X, and Y. So we put this into the career ladder. So if certain people are still skeptics at some point in time, it will show up in the performance reviews. And then either the person can rock the boat without any AI competencies, then it's also fine. But we will talk about this and move into that direction.
Is that realistic if you look into the future, like 2 years from now, that you are working with an engineer that can rock the boat without AI?
Yeah. So that's a super interesting topic, because how will our AI departments look in 2 years from now, or in 1 year from now? And I think they will look dramatically different to now. And for you as an engineer, this will also mean that your job will look like totally different to what it is right now. Yeah,
Can you give some color on different?
yeah, some color of difference. So I'm very bad in predicting the future, to be honest. So you should not listen to me, probably. So my gut feeling is that I mean, you see this already in the layoffs right now. So that you see with Facebook and Google and so on and so on. So they have real productivity gains, I guess, that you can see. So you as an engineer, you will become way more productive. So you can do much, much more in the same amount of time. And this means that this means two things, I guess. One of the things that we're gonna see is the teams will be dramatically smaller than before.
Mhm.
So if you have one product area where you have a product manager and a team of maybe 5 or 6, this can be done by a product manager and one engineer in the future. So the companies will need less people, or if you frame this positively, they can do a lot more cool stuff. But this also means that the product manager role becomes much more important, right?
Mhm.
So either you need more product managers, or the engineers have to have a much, much better understanding of the product, and have a much improved understanding of the customer value that you're delivering. So we expect this from staff engineers and from senior engineers usually, that they have they are customer minded, and in extreme cases they can also replace the product manager even now. But in the future, I guess a senior engineer will always, or almost always, replace a product manager, or will has to be able to do that.
Has the potential at
It
least.
has the potential, yeah. So it will be a lot more fluent. Um, yeah. So smaller teams, much more product focused, way better products, more products. That's what we're gonna see. And
Yeah.
for the product manager, if you see the other parts, so you have engineering, you have product manager. The product manager will be a lot more involved in delivering software already. So if you look at Spotify, for instance, if that's at least what I read about it. So the product managers, if they want to get approval for a certain project or feature or product, they have to come with a working, with a working product, not with Figma screens or screens.
But a prototype.
Not only, yeah, a working prototype. And so what happens is that they do this themselves. So they will fire off like Cloud Code or Cursor, and they will create the whole front end and the whole functionality. Maybe not in a scalable fashion, but something where you can click around and get a feeling for the whole thing.
Yeah.
only to get approval for creating the final product, because the final product needs scalability in place and engineering. And now, yes, so your role as a product manager will change.
Yeah.
A lot more with customers, a lot more delivery already, and then the engineer will just take over and will make the stuff that may be scalable, but you will have a lot more interactions with your engineers there, with your engineer. So customer focus more important, product management role completely different, teams will look different, the way engineers work will look different. So as an engineer, if you come back to the agent-based systems, you will work on like 5 or 6 things in parallel at the same time. And that's not because you don't have enough focus or you want to do a lot of stuff. It's like you have your own team, right? So you as a senior developer, you have your team of agents that do stuff for you, and you have to guide them. So this is how it will develop, I guess. And I might be completely wrong because things change so quickly, but we have to make sure that our departments are ready for this massive and drastic change.
Yeah. So I can agree with the smaller teams. I wouldn't go for one engineer because, like, if this one engineer is sick, then there's no one there supervising the agents, and maybe you don't want to have the product manager working directly with the agents that are producing then the final code. But I agree with the role of the engineer and the role of the product manager. If you see them as something very distinct or like separate, that they're getting closer and closer together, it's basically accelerating the T-shaped skill set approach, where
Good way to lay it out.
yeah, where you have people that have like a really deep understanding of one thing, but they have, or of many things of their expertise area, and then they have things that where they have at least, let's say, shallow understanding. So like an engineer understands, like a front-end engineer understands design, but also understands backend, or a full stack engineer understands product and understands UX or something like this. And it becomes now much easier to create these T-shaped skill sets because you have AI helping you with like filling the gaps or filling the blanks. I also believe that this is true, and maybe an engineer will become more of a product manager, and a product manager will become more of an engineer. And I don't think that that I wouldn't be afraid of that. I would actually welcome that. Bringing these two areas closer together. And it's also a point which I believe when we're talking about AI and engineering, like people are looking always at the software engineers. But I believe that like when you're looking at the whole product development life cycle, there's research happening by UX, there's design happening, there's user experience design happening, there's product like bringing into their value aspect, and all of these things, and all of this can be supported by AI. And the way how you have described it is, like, from my perspective, like it sounds very realistic, at least maybe for the next year. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in half a year, so it will look different. But I can relate to your painting of the future.
Yeah.
I'm not so much a fan of firing people just because of AI. I think that at least for the big tech, it's a symptom of also having hired too many people in the past year.
I totally agree with this. Yeah.
And now they see a chance that, oh yeah, all of these people that we have hired just in case or to work on this minor thing, we can replace them with AI. But I would say, like, the majority of the companies, they are more struggling about not having enough people. And therefore maybe they will hire less in the future, but they will be able to make the existing people more productive. Or if you are very hungry, you would say, like, oh, I have now a 10x engineer here. Let's hire even more because I have the money on the bank and I have all of these ideas that need to be developed. So hire even more engineers. But the engineers that will be hired will be the one that are embracing the agentic
I guess
coding.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's always I've never worked with a company that said, okay, we have implemented like everything we should implement, so we are done. That's never the case. You always have more ideas and more things that should be done, and now finally you can do it. So that's great. And I would also agree to the firing part. I also think that the Silicon Valley has simply overhired the last couple of years, and now they're kind of trying to lay off people and blame AI for it. Yes, I would, for the most part, I would agree. Yes, AI has another huge application that's not part of what we talked about, and that is using AI inside a company, inside management, to understand how the company works, to access all the repositories and data silos of your company and to unite them. So, for instance, to give the CFO access to data lakes and allow the CFO to create presentations easily from just the data in the data lakes. So no manual clicking around, but just, hey, please create the Q3 presentation using this template from the data there, and you get it. So this is something that's not super relevant for us as CTO, but this happens inside the organization.
Yeah.
So on the other hand, you as a CTO also have to open up your repositories and make sure that the company brains and agents can access that. Um, that's one part of it. Another part of it is, as a CTO, you can also use agentic tooling to improve the way you work with your departments. So you can use this to automate things like weekly reviews or having some checks in place to evaluate the Jira tickets automatically, to make sure that regular meetings are being scheduled properly, and having, like, as a CTO, having like a mini CTO next to you that always supports you all the time. And I think this is something we're gonna see in the future as well, and that is very, very helpful, because if you look at how you as a manager, you have to do a lot of repetitive tasks a lot of time and have to think about a lot of things that have to happen in the organization. The more you can automate this in a good way, in an easy way, the better. And so agentic systems can help you with this. So that's, I think, also something we're gonna see that's important. And another thing that's also not regarding engineering is that other companies are using AI-based systems and they want to access your systems with agentic systems. So if you think about product development has to have agentic customers in place that use maybe MCP. So depending on what product you have, but MCP is a good way how you can open up your data to agentic systems. Having a good API in place can open up your systems to agentic systems and much more. So this is more like the product thinking, and that the engineers really keep agentic systems in mind. And the weird part about it is if you have already a good API and maybe a CLI-based system that can access your API, then the agents can use the CLI already. They do understand how it works. And if you have a good documentation in place, the agent can just go to your website, get the documentation, and
Right.
just use the systems right away. So if it's properly done right now, your product is AI ready right now. Right? And if it's not properly done, you are not AI ready, but it also means that you have that your real customers have problems understanding how your APIs work. So it's like the same side of the same coin.
It's accelerating, or it's making an existing problem even more visible.
Yeah, that's true. That's one of the challenges, and it will also support companies that did stuff in a good way in the past. It will automatically support them. It's a flywheel for them, right? So good documentation, good Swagger documentation, maybe a CLI. It works, right? You don't have to have an MCP or some fancy
Right.
system to enable AI. So yeah, that's another part. It's about making engineering, and your engineers use agent-based systems, but it's also about all companies using AIs. You as a manager using AIs, maybe your engineering leads using AIs, agent systems who run the department, and then your customers, they also use AIs, and so you have to become AI ready there as well. So it's like all AI these days.
I like the mini CTO. I'm still stuck on that one sentence because you sparked a few ideas with me about like building my own dashboard instead of like checking all of these tools manually, especially in a growing team. I mean, if you have one team and you're dealing with them every day, then maybe it's not necessary. But if you have 20 teams, 200 people plus, it's not scaling, and then you have to rely on many other people. And not that I'm not trusting them, but having a dashboard without the need to invest thousands and thousands of euros for someone to build it That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I will double down on that one.
Maybe asking the question, is it actually all good? Are there only good parts of AI? Can we just use AI, or are there some risks and dangers? And I think there are some risks and dangers.
The way how you're asking them, they have to be, right?
Yeah, they have to.
What do you see?
I mean, the first risk or danger is hallucinations. So I would say, I mean, I love agent-based systems. I love Cloud Code. I love Cursor. But these are super dumb machines, to be honest. They're just, I mean, that's probabilistic machines that just extend sentences based on probabilities. Super helpful, but sometimes it's just wrong.
You said your daughter is building math tests.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask then, but I waited for now. Like, is AI good at math? LLMs is a probabilistic machine.
It works well enough, but it's interesting that you mentioned my daughter, because that's one of the things I always keep telling her. And we had also in these math tests. I don't know if this was math tests, but stuff that the AI generated for her to learn from was actually wrong, and we pointed it out. And this is important also for the next generation, and not also for the engineers, of course, to really be very, very aware of the fact that anything that the AI generates can be like super wrong in terms of architecture layout, in terms of what it writes in like in all sorts of ways. So I would always recommend having at least a second look at what AI generated. Yes, because if these mistakes, like architectural mistakes, if they compound, you would have very unusable software in a couple of iterations with the AI systems, at least right now. And the same is true for the general the general population. So whoever I talk with that is using AI, I congratulate that person. At the same time, I keep on saying, be very cautious about what it returns. It can always double check, ask for references, and make sure that it does the right thing.
Right.
So that's hallucinations. They're real. They're not gone, and they are a problem.
I think even for some questions that you're asking, I don't know, medical or legal stuff, then there are always like disclaimers that are even like sent by the LLM chatbot, whatever you're dealing with. That this is like, they're not a lawyer, they're not a doctor, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And again, it's the same thing. If you have a medical problem, don't ask an LLM. Like, just the way like you shouldn't have Googled it. Visit a doctor, right? So it's like,
And still everyone does it, right? So that's the fun part of it.
yeah.
But it's true. I mean, for legal, I have actually instances where I used or just tried to use ChatGPT for legal advice, and it was wrong. It was because I knew the answer, so I was I just tried to find out if it's actually given the right answer. It was wrong. And so the question is, how many of the answers I got from ChatGPT in the past where I didn't know the right answer were actually wrong? And I'm sure that there were some wrong answers that I just accepted.
So hallucination is a problem. That's why the human still needs to be involved in some way. But like, as we noticed, like it's going in like the guide or the guiding mode and like final check, but not like, oh, I need to like take the AI at its hand like a junior engineer.
That's true.
That's one thing. What about cost?
Cost, yeah, I think cost can get, it can become quite expensive, I guess, at some point. So it's important to manage the cost and to see how much you spend. I mean, I just told you that we are using the cost to manage adoption. So we want the cost to go up. But then again, if you want to game the system, I would actually know how to game the system.
There have been a leaderboard in some of,
Yeah.
I don't recall which of the big companies it was, but it was like switched off very quickly because
Exactly.
they tried to game the system because they had a leaderboard on who was using the most tokens, and and then what they did was just burn money, and
Exactly.
it didn't produce any results.
Exactly. So we have to be really cautious about this. And Cloud Code is also increasing the token, the cost per token these days. Yeah, so it can become costly.
Do you know what like how many tokens, or what a token is, like in if you translate it into words, how many words is a token
I
roughly?
I would say 1 to 2.
Exactly. It's something between like 1.2 or whatever. Like roughly, if you're calculating your cost, then every word is worth a token. And if you know how many, how much a token costs you, you can very quickly calculate the more words you're using, the more tokens you're burning. So I noticed now, and like one of my teams that they found like the caveman add-on, which was like trying to reduce the number of words that need to be used in. So they were speaking like cavemen.
But there's, at the same time, it's very difficult to estimate this because, I mean, if you have like systems that are calling agents and sub-agents and tool calling, this is sometimes very expensive. For instance, if you use, that's what I mentioned, or what I noticed when I'm using Claude, and Claude is like scraping websites for me, this is very, very expensive in terms of token usage. I don't know why really, but it's very expensive. And so yeah, you have to be really cautious about this.
All of the zero white spaces or
Yeah, maybe.
invisible wordings that are in the
Yeah.
website.
And at the same time, but it's also very counterintuitive. So many teams try to use cheaper models, right? Because the tokens are cheaper for an older model, or for Sonnet, it's cheaper than for Opus.
Yes.
But what happens is, if you use Sonnet for certain questions, it needs more tokens for reasoning about it, because it can't find the answer as quickly as Opus would. So Opus, in the end, was, at least in the experiments I did, this was cheaper than Sonnet. With Sonnet is not as clever. It has to think about a lot of stuff for a long time, burns tokens, tokens, tokens. Opus is, yeah, burn tokens that are actually more expensive, but for a way shorter amount of time. So I think you have to be cautious about this. So
Yep.
using the latest models that sound expensive can save you money, actually.
But cost is something that can be seen as unclear. Also, you don't know how companies like Anthropic or OpenAI are going to change their business model and then maybe increase costs. And I don't know what's going to happen. And maybe then something like a on-premise model that you're running on your own machine might become much more
Yes.
effective if you are accepting that there are like these cutoffs where, okay, this is what the model knows, and everything else you need to install a new model. You have to train a new model.
And this is also one of the very interesting parts of the revolution that we are seeing right now. I mean, everyone is talking about data centers and Claude and so on, and Opus, but the models, there are so many really good open source models out there right now that you can already now run on your local machines, or on a very not so expensive NVIDIA GPUs. If you fast forward this to 2 or 3 years in the future, I think actually that we will see all these models running locally on our machines. So no models in the data centers anymore. And another thing that supports this hypothesis is that Google recently released like 3 or 4 approaches where you can reduce the amount of memory and the amount of computation you need by like you reducing the bits that your neural networks need and so on, which cuts costs dramatically. And which means that these models, like really large models, can be run on way smaller machines.
And
So
you're thinking this will, you think this will go local.
this will go.
You will have it on your mobile phone.
You will have it on your mobile phone. You will have it on your Mac as part of Mac OS.
Okay.
So
What about, let's talk about something else which is controversial, or let's say, well, maybe not controversial, but like you were describing how the future development looks like, and you have like agents. You were painting this picture of the senior engineer that has 6 agents running. And how does this fit together with me saying that the human still needs to be like the guide, and maybe at the end also checking what's being done, like code reviews? What's going to happen to code reviews?
I think right now we still have to do code reviews and have to make sure that everything runs into the right direction. Maybe they go away, I don't know, but this is what the senior engineer would do, right? So you have like an army of of agent-based systems that do stuff for you, but you have to, first of all, you have to create the product requirements or the specs. So what this agent system should actually create. And you have to guide that system into the right direction. You have to review what the system did and correct it, because you are the senior, the system is the junior. And you have to do this in parallel for 5 or 6 of those agent systems, which is like very similar to what you do right now. So you are a senior, but your team is larger. So you have to really, like, mentoring and coaching is one part of your duties as a senior. So you will have to still do this, but you will coach and mentor the AI systems.
And so the human now needs to do like this, paralyzing their attention on different problems, which is not like, it's the opposite of focus. It's
Yeah, that's dangerous, right? But yeah, I think that's what we're gonna see.
okay. Something else that you see?
I guess we talked about a huge amount of things. There's still a lot is missing, but I guess AI is evolving, so we will have room for a second episode on
I
AI.
would say there are people way smarter than us talking about this.
Yeah,
So
so true.
if you want to go deeper into this, then maybe have a look for them. But it's more like an introduction and some ideas and some forecasts.
Some forecasts, yeah, that's good.
And we can look at this video in a year or so and see how much of this has become true.
Let's see. Cool. Yeah, then thanks a lot, Marco. That was a good session, I guess.
Finally, we talked about AI.
Finally.
Thanks, Raphael.